This will be a critical week for the New York Islanders and their 2024-2025 season. We explain why, and we preview tonight's home game against the LA Kings. All that and more coming up on today's Locked On Islanders podcast.
Your Locked On Islanders, your daily podcast on the New York Islanders. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome, everybody, to the Tuesday edition of the Locked On Islanders podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I want to thank everyone who makes Locked On Islanders your first listen every day. Don't forget to subscribe on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts so you get new episodes as soon as they drop. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. You could start the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win that first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. This week, here we are, right now. And we are 29 games into the New York Islanders season. That means that there are 53 games left. We are not even, roughly, not even 40% through the schedule here. But the Islanders, with a chance right now to really pick a direction. And I think this coming week is going to be important for the New York Islanders. And I'll tell you why. The Islanders right now are coming off a 2-game winning streak, winning both games this past weekend at home against Carolina on Saturday, on the road Sunday in Ottawa. The Ottawa game, for most of the game, they were outplayed, but special teams for once and great goaltending by Ilya Sorokin kind of allowed the Islanders to steal 2 points in a game where in the past they would not have come away with more than 1 and possibly 0. The 2 prior games before this past weekend were a loss in Montreal to a struggling Canadiens team and a no-show loss, or at least a no-show for the first 2 periods plus, at home against the Kraken. And maybe those 4 games, if you line them up, are kind of like the Islanders season in microcosm. They lose games they should win. Occasionally they win games they should lose. Their performances are wildly inconsistent. And just when you think that you've got this team figured out, when you think things are really starting to go well, they stumble. When you think things are really starting to get out of control and spiral into the depths, they win 2 straight like they did this weekend. It has been that kind of season, and maybe more than one season, if we're honest with each other as Islander fans, where, and I think if you take a step back and look at the big picture, and everydayers, I've been talking about this for a long time now. This team remains in the muddy middle. They are not bad enough to lose enough to get that lottery pick, that high lottery pick, and they're not good enough to be more than a fringe playoff team who barely sneaks into the playoffs and then, either gets eliminated in the first round or maybe at best can spring, one upset in a series if Sorokin gets hot and they can move on. But, this year has been different in one respect only, and that is the injuries. And, losing your most dynamic offensive player in Matthew Barzal, losing Anthony Duclair, who you just brought in to fortify that top line. Losing 3 defensemen, including, Adam Pelech and Mike Riley, long term. All of this has really hurt the team's performance. And yet, you look at the standings right now, and the New York Rangers are in 4th place with 29 points. They all tied with the Islanders, who also have 29 points, but the Islanders have played 3 extra games, okay? So the Islanders are 5th place right now in the division, but tied for 4th in points, 1 point ahead of 6th and 7th, and 2 points ahead of 8th. And both the Flyers and Blue Jackets have 1 and 2 games in hand on the Islanders, respectively. We have been talking about the fact that the Islanders, Matthew Barzal skating on his own, Adam Pelech, still non-contact last we heard, but practicing with the team. Anthony Duclair, been skating. These guys are getting closer to being able to return to the lineup. And so, the goal when all these injuries happened was, the Islanders need to tread water. The Islanders need to stay in the race until everybody comes back. And then if they can get a little winning streak going at the right time, they could find themselves in the playoff hunt. Well, if you look at the standings right now, playoff berths are there for the taking. And no, it won't be easy. The Capitals, Devils, and Hurricanes well ahead of the Islanders. The Rangers, again, with the 3 games in hand, and they've been underachieving according to most experts this year. They will be tough to pass over the course of a whole season. But here's the deal. You got 3 games coming up this week. You got the Kings, and then a home and home with the Blackhawks. You're coming off a 2-game winning streak in which your new top line played very well. You've had Bo Horvat finally getting off the schneid after going 13 full games without a goal. Noah Dobson, perhaps, playing better offensive hockey than he has all year. And, all right, his defense has been a little less awful. I'm still not going to say he's particularly good on D. But good teams, playoff teams, or to put it more succinctly or more specifically, teams that are legitimate contenders to advance in the playoffs. They don't just get hot for 2 or 3 games or even 5 and then, go 4-0-1 in 5 games and then go 1-6-2 in their next 8 or 9. No. Yeah, there are slumps and streaks along the way, but a team that can contend for the cup and can be a legitimate playoff dangerous team consistently plays a certain style of hockey, relies on their best players to be their best players, and wins more often than not based on the fact that they make other teams play the way they want them to play. And I think the question for the New York Islanders is that this next 3-game stretch, which admittedly is going to be, soon before, barring any setbacks, knock wood, some of your walking wounded start to return to the lineup, is going to tell us more. If the Islanders go out in these next 3 games and lose 2 or more and get less than 4 points in these next 3 games, then I'm telling you right now, I just don't see this team being good enough to right the ship. And, you know, I'll give a baseball example. I grew up a Mets fan. And I remember, in the late 70s, early 80s, the Mets were dreadful. And you'd read the Mets yearbook. I'd buy it every year. And the yearbook would say, like, such and such a player who hit 230 for the year, such and such a player hit 356 from July 1st to July 10th. And yeah, they did. They got hot for 10 days. But for the rest of the year, they hit 205. Any player who's good enough to make the NHL, they're there for a reason. They can get hot. They can play a few games and look really good. But contending teams, good teams, real teams that have a chance to win a championship, win on a consistent basis. They don't win every game, but they show you something on a regular basis. I will venture to say for the last 3.5 years, the New York Islanders have rarely done that, if they've done it at all. This Islander team has been a fringe playoff team. With all the injuries, if they even want to be that, they're going to need to finish this season playing really well. And to do that, they have to start proving that they are ready to start piling up wins. And it doesn't have to be, this doesn't have to be, okay, they're on a 2-game winning streak. They've got 3 games this week. You don't have to say, oh yeah, they're on a 5-game winning streak. Doesn't have to be. But give me 3-1-1. Give me 4-0-1. Give me a team that shows that they have turned a corner and have started to play a different way. That a team that realizes this is what we need to do for our identity to be successful, and then goes out and does those things. It means listening to Patrick Waugh when he tells you, hey, Pierre Engvall, I need you to play a certain way. Hey, Noah Dobson, I need you to do more of X, Y, and Z. All of these little things add up. And I think playing a really good and hot LA Kings team, and then back-to-back games against a team which right now has the worst record in hockey and has a new coach and an injured starting goalie. If you can't put together at least 4, maybe 5 points in these 3 games, I think it's a big indication that, yeah, this team can play well for 2 or 3 games at a time, but they are not good enough to sustain it. And based on everything I've seen this year, last year, the year before that, that's where we are. Not good enough to sustain it. The Islanders have to start proving me wrong. And if they don't, if they go 0-2-1, let's say, in these next 3 games, I think that's a big indication that this team is not only not in a playoff spot right now, but really isn't good enough to get there this year. And it's time to start thinking about where we go from here. Doesn't have to be a complete rebuild, but a strong retool at the very least. Show me something, guys. Show me something this week. All right. We've got more to discuss on today's show. Patrick Waugh put together a defensive pairing over the last few games that I'm a little confused about, and yet it's been working okay. So I'm going to talk about that. We'll preview the game against the LA Kings tonight. And for our Islanders birthday of the day, we're a day early, but a former Islanders defenseman who served as the team's captain and played with the Islanders in the late 2000s and early 2000 teens. Let's see if you can guess who this former Canadian player is. We've got that and a whole lot more on today's Locked On Islanders podcast. Today's episode is sponsored by Prize Picks. If you love sports, you're going to love Prize Picks, the best place to turn your sports knowledge into real money. Whether it's hockey, football, or any of your favorite sports, Prize Picks makes it easy to get in on the action. Here's why you need to get started today. You can win up to 200 times your money on Prize Picks. You'll get $50 instantly when you play your first $5 lineup. You don't even need to win. The $50 is guaranteed. Prize Picks also offers fun weekly promotions like Taco Tuesday, where select player projections are discounted up to 25%. I mean, this week on Prize Picks, I'm looking at the hockey board. Maybe we want to talk about Jack Hughes for more than 4 shots on goal, or Artemi Panarin for more than 1 assist. It's so simple to make picks and have fun with friends while potentially cashing out fast. Download the Prize Picks app today and use code LOCKEDONNHL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's right, $50 instantly. Prize Picks, run your game. So Patrick Waugh kind of put together a defensive pairing, and Waugh is always tinkering with his lineup, okay? And I'm not really critical of that. I think there are benefits to it over the long run, even though sometimes there are problems. And we've noticed, for example, that Grant Hutton and Dennis Cholowski have kind of been rotating in and out of the lineup. So that makes it even more enticing, or more likely, let's say, that the defensive pairs are going to get shuffled a little bit. But what Patrick Waugh put together over the weekend that I found interesting, you had Ryan Pollock and Alexander Romanov as one pair. And I could see that. It's more of a defensive-oriented pairing, more of a shutdown pairing. Both of those guys are capable of providing a little offense, although it's not the strongest part of their game. Both of them are among your better defensive defensive defensemen. So, again, I get Romanov and Pollock, although, okay. Third pair on Sunday was Cholowski and Mayfield, but it's the second pair that I think was a little bit of a surprise to me. And that was this. Noah Dobson was paired with Isaiah George. Now, why is this a little curious to me? To me, Isaiah George, I like the kid. He is definitely been a nice surprise, a pleasant addition. He has a high hockey IQ, keeps things simple most of the time, and gets the job done. Okay? I like what I've seen thus far from Isaiah George. But Isaiah George is also still a rookie. And I would say once, maybe twice a game, we still see Isaiah George, especially in his own zone, make rookie mistakes. And there's nothing wrong with making rookie mistakes in the big picture of things. It's expected. But a lot of those mistakes are in the defensive zone and positional in nature, where he's in the wrong position because he's trying to make a play or cover up for his partner, or B, again, he's 20 years old. At times playing against, 30-year-olds, 28-year-olds, he's going to be physically out-muscled, okay? Because he is still learning the NHL game. He's not as physically mature as a lot of these other players, and it's something that you absolutely have to be aware of. So to pair Isaiah George, who is smart, generally has a high hockey IQ, but does make some mistakes defensively, pairing him with Noah Dobson, who has been a shipwreck. I mean, he has been a dreadful liability for most of this season in his own zone. At first, I was like, wow, that really makes no sense. This is a pair I wouldn't put out. If I'm trying to hold a lead in the last 5 minutes of a game, I don't want either one of these guys on the ice separately much, let alone at the same time. But I think what Patrick Waugh was hoping for, and I think what he's gotten to an extent, is knowing that he's playing with a rookie almost forces Noah Dobson to simplify things in his own zone. And we have seen over the last couple of games, only over the weekend, and again, if you tie this in with what I said in the first segment, where you really want to see a guy not just do it for 2 or 3 games, but to do it consistently. All right. You don't want to be Pierre Engvall. Yeah, we saw a 3-game goal scoring streak for Pierre Engvall, and then he went right back to his old habits. And he once again became the invisible man. And again, Patrick Waugh sits him. You don't want to see that. But for 2 games at least, Noah Dobson has been a little better in his own zone. A little better. Because I think he realizes I'm with a rookie. I've got to make the smart play whenever possible. And offensively, he now has a 4-game point streak. So, again, like I said in the first segment, I'm cautious here. I am not going to declare, oh, yes, Noah Dobson is back. Noah Dobson is playing at that all-star level again. He's not. He's had a couple of better games. He needs to make it even more. He needs to make it, doesn't need a 10-game scoring streak, but can we get, can he play well in 5 out of 6 games or 5 out of 7 games and only have a bad game in 1 of 6 or 7 games? Let's see. Let's see. It's a counterintuitive pairing of Dobson and George, but so far in a very small sample size, it has worked for the New York Islanders, and I'm going to keep my eye on this pairing going forward tonight against LA, and if it stays together beyond that. Now, just FYI, the 4-game streak, the point streak by Dobson, is tied for the team longest point streak of the year. Anders Lee did it twice. Kyle Palmieri did it once. We're 29 games into the season. Can someone get to 5 when we get to 30? It'd be nice. It'd be nice. All right, more to discuss on today's show. We will preview tonight's game against the LA Kings. This is not an easy game. This is a very telling game in my mind. We'll talk about that. We'll have our Islanders birthday of the day and a lot more coming up on today's Locked On Islanders podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more, all on the same page where you place your bets. And Islander fans, see if the Islanders, they're going to go for a 3-game winning streak tonight at home against LA. Check out all the latest odds on FanDuel and use your knowledge of hockey and the Islanders to place some exciting bets. Visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. I want to thank you for making Locked On Islanders your first listen today. For your second listen, find Locked On Fantasy Hockey. Become a fantasy hockey expert. Get the edge over your league mates. You get daily tips from hosts Steele and Flip. Find Locked On Fantasy Hockey on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. It's part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. LA Kings visiting UBS Arena. Big game tonight. Kings red hot. They are riding a 5-game winning streak. They are now in second place in the Pacific Division, behind only Vegas. And they are 8 games over NHL 500. They have 35 points, so they're 6 points ahead of the Islanders with 2 games in hand. They are doing it with defense. Right now, they are third in the NHL in goals against. And in this 5-game winning streak, they have given up 7 goals in those 5 games. 1, 1, 2, 2, 1 goals against in the last 5 games. It will be a challenge for the New York Islanders to beat the LA Kings as long as they continue to play this shutdown defensive hockey style. And let's face it, we talked about Noah Dobson playing a little bit better over the last few games. He is going to need to carry the puck and really do well while doing it to help that transition game, because the Islanders are going to need a little offense, and they're going to need their power play to continue to play well. The Kings' power play has been a liability. It's 26th in the league, only 16.9% success rate. The penalty kill is right in the middle, 15th, a little under 80%, 79.8. The goalies right now for the LA Kings are Darcy Kemper and David Rittich. Now, Kemper started their last game against Minnesota. That game was played on Saturday. So either goalie could go. Now, that 5-game winning streak, by the way, 3 of them were tough opponents. They beat Winnipeg, they beat Dallas, and they beat Minnesota. All of those games, those 3 games, were at home. Now they're embarking on a 7-game road trip. There are some familiar veteran names. Anze Kopitar, for example. Definitely. He still leads the team in points and assists. Right now, red hot, Adrian Kempe. 13 goals. That leads the team. 26 points. That's second on the team. He is dangerous. On the power play, look out for Kevin Fiala. He leads the team with 4 power play goals. The line combinations for the Kings: Kopitar, Trevor Moore, and Kempe are the top line. Quentin Byfield centers Warren Fogle and Tanner Jeannot on the second line. Philip Deneau, Kevin Fiala, and Alex Lafreniere are the third line. And then on the fourth line, from left to right, Kyle Burrows, Samuel Hellenius, and Alex Turcotte. On defense, Mikey Anderson and Vladislav Gavrikov are the top pair. Joel Edmondson and Brant Clark are the middle pair. And Jacob Mouvrer and Jordan Spence are the third pair. Obviously, the name we don't hear, Drew Doughty, he's on IR, as is Trevor Lewis, Caleb Jones, and Arthur Kaliev. So injuries, an issue right now, but not bothering the LA Kings. And the Islanders will have to find a way. First of all, the Islanders are going to need good goaltending. And second of all, they are going to need to take advantage of the few chances they get, because I can tell you right now, they're not going to get a lot of chances against a very sound defensive LA Kings team. And Patrick Roy has a decision to make. Do you go with Ilya Sorokin again? He played well. Do you go back to him? Or if Semyon Varlamov is healthy enough to play, and we'll keep you up to date via X more tomorrow, whether or not Varley is ready. Do you go with Varley? Or if Varley is not ready to go, you got to figure Marcus Hogberg starts one of the next 3 games. But which one? Tough decisions for Roy. I would go Sorokin one more game and then split Hogberg and Sorokin, assuming that Varley isn't back yet, against Chicago. But we'll see what Patrick Roy decides to do. Time now for our Islanders birthday of the day, and we're a day early. but Wednesday will be the 47th birthday of former Islanders captain and defenseman Mark Streit, the native of Bern, Switzerland, 5'11", 185 pounds, a ninth-round pick by the Canadiens in the 2004 NHL entry draft, came to Montreal for the 05-06 season and became an Islander in 08-09, had his best year that first season with the Islanders, 16 goals, 56 points in 74 games, had, more good seasons with the Isles, 4 altogether, was the team's captain and was a power play specialist, a good offensive player, really gave an extra dimension to those Islanders teams. One of his better games with the Isles, March 15th, 2009, Islanders visiting the Blackhawks in the United Center. Peter Menino, the goalie for the Islanders, Nikolai Habibulin, the goalie for Chicago. And it was the Islanders getting on the board first midway through the first period with with the Islanders on the power play. Mark Streit, our Islanders' birthday of the day, scores. Kyle Oposo, Richard Park with the assist. Islanders up 1-0. With the game 2-1 Islanders late in the second period, Streit and Blake Como set up Franz Nielsen also on the power play. The Islanders go up 3-1 in the third, again on the power play. And I told you Streit was great with the extra man. Streit scores his second goal of the game, 15th of the year. Bruno Gervais and Kyle Oposo with the assist. Islanders go on to beat the Blackhawks 4-2. And for our Islanders' birthday of the day, Mark Streit, 2 goals and assist. He had 2 penalty minutes. He had 3 shots on goal and played 27 minutes and 23 seconds as the Islanders beat the Blackhawks 4-2. Peter Menino, 40 saves in a wild shootout in which both teams had 42 shots on goal. So, Mark Streit is our Islanders' birthday of the day. If you have a question, a comment, maybe a topic you'd like us to discuss on a future episode, email us at lockedonislanders@gmail.com. And if you leave your first name and where you're from, we're happy to mention you on the show when we discuss whatever's on your mind. You can also follow the show on X at Locked On Isles. You could follow me, Gil Martin, on X at Ice Wars, NYR, VSNYI. We'll keep you up to date on all things Islanders all year long, and I am live tweeting during nearly every Islanders home and road game. So join me for some instant insight and analysis. We will be back tomorrow. We will have our key takeaways from tonight's big game against the LA Kings. And we'll have our weekly farm report on all things Bridgeport Islanders. So make sure you join us for that. And hopefully we'll have some more injury updates, whether it's on Varley or Barzy or any of the other injured players. Until then, have a great day, everybody. Stay safe. And of course, let's go Islanders.